So at Fusion, we have our various Fuse engines to help really enhance and enrich the data sets. So what we have here today is an example using our competitor share model and to showcase how our Fuse engines actually work in the backend. So for example, one of the first steps filtering the data, we want to make sure that the noise are really removed from the raw data set so that we're really working with good inputs. So in this case, we've got a dashboard called source processing. Within it, as an example, we can select various retailers by the channels, by in this case, we're using our Walmart client as an example, but their competitor market share dashboard. So it's all in the Walmart's hierarchy. And what we want to take a look, let's say, is we want to look at Best Buy for the brick channel for television. And what this dashboard would be able to show us once the model has been run is how the filtering actually works on the various input sources. So as an example, as you can see, we've got some of these sources that we've listed out that are at its raw stage, as well as the filter versions of it, so that we can see the before and after, how the various inputs are being enhanced. So as you can see, the ups and downs, all of those really big ups and downs that might not necessarily seem to be realistic, it has now been filtered out so that we're actually dealing with data sets with the right magnitudes that actually makes logical sense in the real world. And so, for example, if we look at survey, this is what it would have looked like in its raw form, where market share in this case is swinging from at a point of 40% and then next month down to 20% and then back up to 37%. So this bounciness, essentially doubling and dropping in half, doesn't really necessarily make sense in the real life examples, because that's not what we see in sales data. Sales data doesn't even move in this flexibility. But survey data is able to provide us with pretty good absolute ranges of where the market share should be. And so in this case, we want to keep that strength of it and remove the noise. So when we run it through our filtering engine, you can see how it has really tempered those big swings, but it can keep the trend. So therefore, for example, this upward trend that we see, even though it's up and down, we still see it in the filter version of it. And we do this for all the data sources that we can get our hands on. And once that's done, now the next step is essentially do the unifying, synchronizing component to get the consensus modeling happening. So in this case, with our going back to our competitor share dashboard, we can select, let's say we go back to the Best Buy example. So we can go in and select television to pull up the same example. And this dashboard runs live as we select various cuts. It's running live to pull up the relevant data sets. So in this version of the dashboard, we have taken all the filter sources essentially and now moving on to the next stage in unifying and synchronizing so that we can get our triangulate version of the truth. And so this dashboard is to bring those pieces together and show how different sources works on its own as well as relatively to everything else and how we land to our consensus. So as an example, let's pull up an example on this example looking into the trend. So in this case, we've got three main sources. We've got our survey, then we have square footage related data source. This is used for market share because it is one of the key factors of growing or shrinking market share is do you have more touch points or less touch points, as well as in this case we've got numerator. And as you can see, the square footage, which represents store opening as a source, is radically different during the recent months. And that's because Best Buy in Canada has been opening stores through its acquisition of another banner, and those are usually smaller format store is focusing on, for example, the mobile side of the business. So in this case, on the television, that increase in store opening square footage is actually not very useful in this example. So our model then dynamically understands the importance, even though there's a huge spike up, but all the other sources are actually pointing to a very different direction. So therefore, our triangulate version is able to figure out the consensus dynamically based on its trend and behavior to land on this is where we still believe that it's trending down, even though we have this outlier source up here.